Okay, so starting with number 6 from the Unit 4 review, we are asked, what is the discriminant of the following and how many real solutions does this signify? So as a reminder, the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. That's the part of the quadratic formula that sits underneath the radical and can tell us how many real solutions our equations will have. So if we're looking at a, x squared plus 6x minus 6 equals 0. B squared minus 4ac would be 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 6. So that's 36 plus 24, which is 60. We compare 60 to 0, that's greater than 0, which signifies 2 real solutions. Okay. So 60 was our discriminant, 2 real solutions is what it signifies. 2x squared minus 4x plus 10 equals 0. Okay, so for b squared minus 4ac, we would do negative 4 squared minus 4 times 2 times 10. That's 16 minus 80. So that's negative 64, which is less than 0, so that means no real solutions. All right, in number 7, we are asked to solve by the method of our choice. So this is where 9.4 comes in handy, where we talked about best methods. So I'm going to write this down, 2/3 x squared minus 11/3 x minus 21/3. First thing I want to do is I notice these all have a denominator of 3. I'm going to go ahead and multiply everything by 3 to clear that denominator. So I get 2x squared minus 11x minus 21 is 0. Okay, so I'm not missing any terms, like I'm not missing my b term or my c term, so that tells me I'm not going to use the square root method and I'm not going to use greatest common factor method. I will look for a greatest common factor, and there isn't one, so there's nothing to divide all of these by. So since I do have all 3 terms, the first thing I like to try is factoring. So I'm going to go ahead and put negative 42 here, negative 11 here. I'm asking myself, are there any 2 factors that multiply to make negative 42 and add to make negative 11? So I know that 42 is 14 and 3, 14 times 3, so if I do negative 14 and positive 3, if I added those together, that would make negative 11. So now I rewrite my middle term as negative 14x plus 3x, and then I group. So now I'm going to go ahead and factor out a GCF from each of these groups. So I'll take out a 2x here and have x minus 7, and I'll factor out a 3 here and have x minus 7. So I've got this common binomial of x minus 7 that I will factor out. And I'm left with 2x plus 3. And then I'll use the zero product property to write 2 equations. And I get x equals 7 here by adding 7 to both sides. Here I'll subtract 3. And I get x equals negative 3 halves. Box those. Okay. Great. For 7b, I've got 2x squared plus 13 fifths x equals 3 fifths. Okay. Once again, I'm going to clear my denominator. I'm going to multiply everything by 5. So then I've got 10x squared plus 13x equals 3. Okay. So right away I know that I don't want to complete the square because a is not only 1 and this is odd, it's not even, so I don't want to complete the square. I do have all 3 terms if I move my 3 over, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to subtract 3 and get 10x squared plus 13x minus 3 equals 0. So now my options are, I could, factor again. I could use the quadratic formula. Just to mix it up, I'm going to go ahead and try the quadratic formula on this one. So x equals negative b would be negative 13 plus or minus the square root of b squared would be 13 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. It's negative 13 plus or minus, okay, so 13 squared is 169. And then this is minus 4 times 10 is 40 times negative 3 over 20. So that's negative 13 plus or minus the square root of 169. So this is minus 40 times negative 3, so this will be plus 120 all over 20, which is negative 13 plus or minus the square root of 289 all over 20. So there is a nice square root of 289. I think it might be 17. I'm going to check really quickly. 7 times 7 is 49. 119, 0, 7, 1. Yes, it is 17. So 289 is 17 and 17. So that means that's negative 13 plus or minus 17 all over 20. So that means x is negative 13 plus 17 over 20, or negative 13 minus 17 over 20. So negative 13 plus 17, that's 4 over 20, which reduces to 1/5. Negative 13 minus 17, that's negative 30 over 20, which reduces to negative 3/2. So I'm getting 1/5 or negative 3/2. So I did have an option on this one. I could have solved by factoring again. Since I'd already done that on A, I decided to do quadratic formula on this one for B. Okay, I'm going to turn this and work on C. Okay, so I've got 3x squared minus 12x equals 10. Okay, so my middle term is even this time, but I have something here that's not 1, so I don't want to complete the square. I do have all three terms if I move my 10, so I am going to move my 10 again, or again I'm going to move my c over, so 3x squared minus 12x minus 10 equals 0. All right, so once again, I'm going to go ahead and do quadratic formula on this one, and maybe let's talk about why. So if I put negative 30 here, negative 12, okay, if I think about the things that multiply to make negative 30, I could do like 15 and negative 2, or negative 15 positive 2. That's not going to make negative 12. Negative 30 could also be 5 and 6 in some combination of negative and positive. Still won't make negative 12. 30 and 1, some combination of positive negative, still won't make negative 12. So this one is prime, meaning it can't be factored. So if something's prime, then your backup option is the quadratic formula. So we'll go ahead and do that again. So negative b, negative negative 12, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. This is 12 plus or minus, negative 12 squared is 144, and this is minus 12 times negative 10, which is 12 plus or minus the square root, so this is 144 plus 120, or 6, which equals 12 plus or minus the square root of 264 all over 6. Okay, so now I need to figure out, there is no nice square root of 264, so I need to figure out what 264 reduces into. I can tell it's an even number, so let's see how many times 2 goes into it. It's 3 times, and 2. 134. Okay, so 132, I'm sorry. 2 and 132. So that is also divisible by 2. 2 goes into 13. 6 times. 66. Okay. And then 66 is 6 and 11, and 6 is 2 and 3. Okay, great. So I've got this pair of 2's that I can circle, and then I don't have any pairs left. So it looks like this will be 12 plus or minus, the 2 comes out, and then these guys have to stay inside, so that's 66 inside all over 6. And then I can reduce all of these outside by 2, so this would become a 6, a 1, and a 3. So my final answer is 6 plus or minus root 66 over 3. All right. Okay, so then on D, I've got 3x minus 4 squared plus 7 equals negative 12. Okay, so as this is written, I don't have a bx term. I have kind of like an a, we can kind of treat this as an x squared term, and then I have some constants. So I'm actually going to use the square root method on this one. And for the square root method, you isolate the x squared and then use square root. So I'm going to isolate this binomial that's being squared by subtracting 7 from both sides. So that would be negative 19. And then I need to divide by 3 on both sides. So that's negative 19 thirds. And now that I've isolated my squared binomial, I can just square root both sides. Don't forget my plus or minus. So x minus 4 equals, and then I'm going to split up my radical. I have a square root of a negative 19, so that means I root 19 over the square root of 3. Because remember, the square root of negative 19 means the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 19, which is I times root 19. So that's how I reduced that. Okay, and I cannot have a radical in my denominator. I need to rationalize my denominator, so I'm going to multiply top and bottom by root 3 to do that. So I get x minus 4 equals plus or minus I root, and then 19 times 3 is 57. So I root 57 over 3. And then I'm going to add 4 to both sides to isolate my x. So I'm getting x is 4 plus or minus I root 57 over 3. And then with E, I've got x squared minus 8x equals 12. Okay, so notice that A is 1 and my bx term is even. So this is a perfect candidate for completing the square. So I'm going to do that now. So I'll take negative 8, divide it by 2 and square it. That's negative 4 squared, that's 16. So 16 is what I add to both sides in order to complete my square. So I've successfully completed the square on the left. This is now a perfect square trinomial that factors like x minus 4 squared. And on the right here, I've got 16 plus 12, which is 28. So just a reminder, factoring this perfect square trinomial, this is in the format of a squared minus 2ab plus b squared, and it factors like a minus b all squared. So that's how I factored from here to here. And then once you've factored it, you can go ahead and square root both sides don't forget your plus or minus on the right. So then I've got x minus 4 equals plus or minus, and then on 28, let's see if I can reduce my radical. That's 4 and 7, and 4 is 2 and 2, so I've got 2 root 7. And then to isolate x, I'm just going to add 4 to both sides and get x equals 4 plus or minus 2 root 7. Okay. Let's move on to number 8. We are finding zeros. So in A, I've got f of x equals 2x, x minus 3, x plus 2. So if I want to find the zeros, that's the same thing as finding x-intercepts. I'm going to set this equal to 0, set my function equal to 0. Since these are all multiplying, this is all a product, I can use the zero product property, meaning I can set each of these equal to 0 and solve. So for this one, I'll divide by 2, I'll get x equals 0, I'll add 3 here, get x equals 3, subtract 2 here, get x equals negative 2. So I can leave my answers like that for finding my zeros, or I can write them as ordered pairs. This would be 0, 0, this would be 3, 0, and this would be negative 2, 0. So those are the ordered pairs for the x-intercepts. Okay, for 8b, I've got f of x equals 4x to the 4th minus 6x cubed minus 28x squared. So once again, I'm going to set that equal to 0. I'm going to factor out a GCF. My GCF appears to be 2x squared. Then I have 2x squared minus 3x minus 14. I'm going to see if I can factor this in the middle here. So this would be negative 28. This would be negative 3. It could be 7 and 4. So negative 7 and positive 4. I got 2x squared on the outside. Inside I've got 2x squared minus 7x plus 4x minus 14. I'm going to group these. So the GCF here is x, 2x minus 7. Here would be 2, 2x minus 7. I'm going to call them binomial. So this is now 2x minus 7 and then x plus 2. And I'll use that zero product property again. So 2x squared equals 0, 2x minus 7 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0. So on this one I can divide by 2. I get x squared equals 0. I can square root both sides. X is 0. Here I'll add 7. 2x equals 7. Divide by 2. X equals 7 halves. Here I can subtract by 2. X is negative 2. Okay, so once again, if I wanted to write those as ordered pairs for my x-intercepts, that would be 0, 0, 7 halves, 0, negative 2, 0. That's 8. Okay, for 9, we are asked to simplify each of these. So A, I've got 4 plus 3i times 6 minus 2i. Okay, so since I'm multiplying two binomials, I'm going to go ahead and FOIL. So 4 times 6 is 24 minus 8i plus 18i minus 6i squared. I'm going to combine my like terms of my I terms right here. So that would be 10i. And I'm going to remember that I squared is the same thing as negative 1. So this is 24 plus 10i plus 6. So I'll combine like terms and get 30 plus 10i, making sure I write my answer in standard form, a plus bi. Okay. 9b is 2 minus 3i minus 5 plus 2i, 7 minus 3i. So this is 2 minus 3i minus, and make sure you use parentheses here because this whole product is being subtracted, and then I'll FOIL again. So this is 35 minus 15i plus 14i minus 6i squared. So I FOILed. So 2 minus 3i, I'm going to combine like terms and do stuff in here, and then I'll distribute the subtraction. So this is 35. Negative 15i plus 14i is just negative I. Negative 6i squared is negative 6 times negative 1, so it's plus 6. So this is 2 minus 3i minus, and I'll combine 35 and 6, and that's 41 minus I. So now I'm going to distribute my subtraction, and I get 2 minus 3i minus 41 plus I. So if I combine like terms, 2 minus 41 is negative 39, and negative 3i plus I is minus 2i. So I'm getting negative 31 minus 2i. 39, I'm sorry, minus 2i. All right, that's 9. Okay, number 10. It says, use the following equation to answer the given equations? I think it means questions. So we are given this projectile motion equation that is h of t equals negative 16t squared plus v naught t plus h0. Okay, so A says an egg is dropped from the top of a building that is 36 feet tall. How long until it hits the ground? So if we're dropping our egg, that means our initial velocity is 0 feet per second. And if the building is 36 feet tall, that means our h0 is 36 feet. We want to know when it hits the ground. That means we set this equal to 0 because the ground we're treating as 0. So negative 16t squared. I don't have a middle term because my v0 was 0. So 0t, I don't need to write that, plus 36. Now I'm just solving this equation. So I'll subtract 36 from both sides. Negative 36 equals negative 16t squared. I'll divide by negative 16. T squared equals, so I can reduce those. I can divide them both by 4. So this would be 9 over 4. I'll square root both sides. I'll put my plus or minus, but I'm only taking the positive answer because it's time. So I'm getting time equals 3/2, which is 1.5 seconds. So it'll take 1.5 seconds. Okay, and then B says, Jesus hits a ball 3 feet off the ground with an initial velocity of 47 feet per second. So we're getting initial velocity 47 feet per second, 3 feet off the ground. So that's my h0, 3 feet. How long before the ball hits the ground? So once again, 0 equals negative 16t squared. Now I have a v naught, so a v0, so that's 47t plus my h0 is 3, my h naught. Okay, so now I need to solve this equation. So I am going to try factoring. So this would be negative 48, and this would be 47, which could be 48 and negative 1. So it looks like it factors nicely. So I could do negative 16t squared plus 48t minus t plus 3. So here I can take out I'll take out a negative 16t. This would be t minus 3 minus 1 t minus 3. So this would be t minus 3 and negative 16t minus 1. So I'm getting t equals 3 for that one. Negative 16t minus 1 equals 0. So I'm getting a negative number for that one, so that's not a valid solution. So t equals 3 seconds is the correct answer. Okay, number 11. A rectangular picture has dimensions of length 2x minus 1 inches and width x plus 7 inches. The area is 108 inches squared. What are the length and width of the picture? So I like to recommend that you draw a picture. This is the area. The length is 2x minus 1 and the width is x plus 7. Okay, so the area of a rectangle is length times width. So that means x plus 7 times 2x minus 1 equals 108. I'm going to go ahead and FOIL this. So this is 2x squared minus x plus 14x minus 7. I'm going to combine like terms. So 2x squared plus 13x minus 7 equals 108. I'll subtract 108 from both sides to get 0 on one side. Minus 115. Okay. So this one should be factorable, but you could also use quadratic formula on this if you prefer. I'll just do that just to show. So negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So that's negative 13 plus or minus the square root. This is 169 minus 8 times negative 115 all over 4. Okay, I have run out of space. I'm going to turn my, no, I'm just going to go up this way. So it's negative 13 plus or minus the square root. Okay, so 115 times 8, 12 is 920. These are both negative, so it's positive. So 169 plus 920. So that's negative 13 plus or minus the square root. It's 9, 8 of 1089, which is negative 13 plus or minus the square root of 1089. I have a feeling it might be 27. I'm gonna see if I'm right. 7 times 7 is 49. 2 times 7 is 14. 18. 18. Nope, bigger than 27. Oh, 37. I bet it's 37. 25, 0, 21, 9, 9, 6, 13, 69. Shoot. Okay. The struggle is real. We're gonna use my calculator. Can't. Square root of 1089. It's 33. Wow. I was off. Okay, sorry about that. Did not know what the square root of 1089 was off the top of my head. Okay, so now I'm going to do negative 13 plus 33 over 4. Negative 13 minus 33 over 4. Okay, so this answer over here is definitely negative. And x can't be negative because we're talking about dimensions here, so I know this is not valid. So I'm just concerned about this one. Negative 13 plus 33 would be 20. So this would be 20 over 4, which is 5. So that's what x equals. So now if x is 5, my length, remember, is 2x minus 1. So that means it's 2 times 5 minus 1, which is 9 inches for my length. My width is x plus 7, which would be 5 plus 7, which would be 12. So my width is 12 inches. My length is 9 inches, and my width is 12 inches. Okay, whew. Calculator to the rescue. All right, last but not least, number 12. Picture frame has a 5x7 picture inside of it. Okay, so we've got a 5x7. We've got a frame. It's a really good frame. Okay, the area of the picture frame, including the picture, is 99 inches squared. So the area of this entire thing is 99 inches squared. What is the width of the picture frame? I guess we're assuming that this distance is equal on every side. Makes sense. So I'm going to call that x on every side. So the area of this entire thing is 99. And I know that that area minus the area of this inner picture, which is 7 times 5, that's how I get the area of the inner picture. I know that's going to give me the area of this out here. Hopefully that makes sense. And then to figure out what the area of, actually, I changed my mind. That's not what I want to do. Okay, so I know that this side out here, this total thing, including the picture and the frame, I know that that's 7 plus x on this side plus x on that side. So that's 7 plus 2x. And I know that this way it's 5 plus x here plus x there, so that's 5 plus 2x. And I know that that equals 99. That's how I'm going to do it. Okay. So just to recap, this is the 7 inches of just the photo, and then I've got x frame on that side, x frame on that side. So this whole length here is 7 plus this x plus that x. So that's how I got 7 plus 2x. And this width here is 5 from the picture, and then the x of the frame and the x of the frame there on each side. So that's 5 plus 2x. And that total area of this whole thing is 99. So that's why I said equal to 99. So I'm going to FOIL this now and get 35 plus 14x plus 10x plus 4x squared equals 99. So I'm going to combine like terms, and I'm going to put this in standard form. So 4x squared plus 24x plus 35 equals 99. Subtract 99 from both sides. Just minus 64 equals 0. Okay, and these are all divisible by 4, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. X squared plus 6x minus 16 equals 0. Okay, I'm going to use the quadratic formula again. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac 2a. It's negative 6. This is 36 plus 64 over 2. This is negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 100 over 2. So that's negative 6 plus or minus 10, which is negative 6 plus 10, negative 6 minus 10. Once again, we're dealing with real life dimensions, so this negative answer is not valid. Okay, so negative 6 plus 10, that's 4 over 2, that's 2. So I'm getting x is 2, and they want to know the width of the picture frame, which is x, so 2 inches. And that is it.